The 2024-25 Premier League campaign is on the horizon. In preparation, we're previewing every single team and discussing how they'll shape up over the next campaign. We take a look at the transfer business conducted by the teams so far and offer suggestions of who else they should move for before the season gets started. Today, we discuss Leicester City. After a title-winning campaign last season, we talk about how Leicester will handle promotion, especially with manager Enzo Maresca leaving for Chelsea. We discuss whether Steve Cooper has what it takes to keep them up and if the points deduction makes it practically impossible for them to survive. This is our 2024-25 season preview for Leicester City. Alright, let's talk about Leicester then. Coming back to the Premier League this season after a season in the Championship, what was a very successful season in the Championship. They were the dominant force for the first half of the campaign. They tailed off in the second half, and a lot of people said that they were quite lucky to hold on to the Championship lead. However, I think a lot of people don't give them their credit for what was a fantastic first half of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel like, as you say, that second half of the season has kind of overshadowed what happened in the first half, and I think we have to remember how good that Leicester side were. They were absolutely formidable.
Yeah.
Miles clear of everyone, and then, as you say, the second half of the season, it tailed off. Perhaps complacency, a couple of things started going wrong. I think the fact that they only won the title by a couple of points at the end is pretty poor from the situation they were in. But don't let that take away the incredible achievement that happened in the first half of the season. They still won the league. That's what matters. They're back in the Premier League and they're pushing on.
Yeah, I think it certainly opens up a conversation about Enzo Maresca, but that's not a problem for Leicester anymore because he has jumped ship. Instead, they've got a whole new problem in the form of Steve Cooper. Now, I couldn't imagine a bigger stylistic change than from Enzo Maresca's free-flowing 3-2-4-1 type shape to Steve Cooper. Now, I don't want to just bash Cooper because he's never been relegated from the Premier League before.
No.
So clearly he is good at keeping teams in the league. Admittedly, he's only been with Nottingham Forest, but he did keep Nottingham Forest what was a very turbulent period for them up in the Premier League. Now, there is going to be a much more difficult challenge here in that Leicester can't spend 300 million and then just only get deduct a couple points. They're already on -7. They don't have a whole lot in the budget to work with. So this is a very difficult job.
Yeah, 100%. And as you say, Steve Cooper, he might not play the best football we're going to see in the Premier League this season, but he's a decent bloke, decent manager. He got Forest up, he kept them up. For Leicester, it's the same scenario. He didn't get them up, obviously, but it's the same feeling. His objective is to keep them in the league, nothing else. It might not be pretty, it might not be fun for Leicester fans at times, but the main objective is to stay in the Premier League. As you say, it is going to be one hell of a job starting 7 points below everyone else.
Yeah, I do want to say because I think there will be comments on this, that is purely speculative. At the moment, nothing has been confirmed, but their appeal regarding the PSR regulations has been rejected because they were claiming they were already relegated by the time that 30th of June thing came around, but the Premier League, an independent regulator said that doesn't matter. So that looks like there will be a deduction. It's expected to be 7 points. That's going to be a huge mountain to climb for Leicester. However, let's look at it more positively because their window so far has been quite successful. We're going to start with outgoings, and we're going to start with Kelechi Iheanacho leaving on a free to Sevilla. I think that the first three here, the fact they all left on free transfers, isn't ideal from Leicester. I don't think the other two matter too much, but it shows a lack of preparation and poor planning ahead because you could have got 10-15 million for Iheanacho last summer and instead he had an okay Championship campaign. He didn't set the league alight and now he's leaving on a free.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I've always liked Iheanacho. I always thought he's a decent player. He looked okay in the Premier League, and as you say, you could have got a lot of money for him in the season that they went down, but they didn't. He was okay last season, but again, you've got quite a few strikers in that Leicester side now, especially with players they're bringing in as well. He's gone on a free. It's not going to be a huge loss, but I think it's more of a loss in terms of the finances there.
Yeah, definitely. The other free transfers, Dennis Pryor, who is without a club, and Mark Albrighton, who is also without a club. I don't think either of these are going to be huge losses for Leicester. The only issue I have with them is that you're letting players go for free. Now, I don't know all the inside details. They may have rejected contracts that were quite reasonable, but you're letting players go for free and now you are a little short in some areas. And so was that a smart decision? Possibly not.
Especially with Mark Albrighton, he's been at the club for a few years now. He's a Leicester, been a great servant for Leicester. It feels weird to let Is that? I mean, I'd be intrigued to see whether this is that if it's him leaving or whether it's Leicester letting someone go when they could really do with him, to be completely honest.
Yeah, they could do with some. To be fair, they've got quite a few right wingers, so I don't think Albright's the biggest loss. I think Dennis Pratt, though, in a position they don't have anyone else at the moment because they've lost Dewsbury Hall. I think that's a bit of an interesting call. Let's go on to Kieran Dewsbury Hall going to Chelsea, £30 million. Probably, arguably their best player last season. I would say he's behind Mavididi, possibly Hermansen in some people's books, but he was certainly very strong for Leicester last season. A big reason why they came back up. And they formed a really nice midfield partnership with Harry Winks and with Soumare or Ndidi based on who played. So that's really interesting to see how they replace Dewsbury Hall. I think they are clearly missing a creator. We're going to look in a moment at how Cooper may look to play this side, and they are severely lacking a midfield creator. So because you look at what was very successful for Cooper at Nottingham Forest, and that was all around Morgan Gibbs-White.
Yeah.
They don't have anyone yet, so that's definitely a player they'll try and bring in that profile. So I think this was a big loss, though.
Yeah, definitely. As you say, he was brilliant last season. I think going into this season, he would have performed to that ability again. He is a Premier League player and he can play very well. Intriguing to see how he does at Chelsea at a much higher level, but yeah, it's a big loss for Leicester. It's a decent fee. They can do something with that money. But the impact that he has on the pitch is going to be missing in Leicester. They're going to have to replace. Obviously, they probably will replace him.
Yeah.
But it's a big loss nonetheless.
Yeah, then let's have a look at incomings. We've got 4 to talk about here. We'll start with Isahaku Fatawu from Sporting. Obviously, he was on loan at the club last season. I'm not sure this is a fantastic deal, if I'm honest. £15 million for a winger who wasn't... he was good in the Championship, but he wasn't incredible. And the step up to the Premier League is so large, I'm just not sure it's the best use of their money, if I'm honest. I think he'll probably do well, and obviously he's a player who, if they do go down again next season, is likely to stick around and likely to be a key part of that. But when you've already got on that flank Casey McAteer, unless this is preparing for him to leave this summer, I don't see what they're doing there. So I'm not sure. And then you look at the fact they've also brought in Belby Decordova-Reid for a free. That's really good cover.
Yeah.
You don't also need Fatawu. So I thought that's a little bit interesting, especially considering Fatawu can't play on the left flank. If you're going to bring in someone like that, surely you bring in someone who can play both wings. But that's an interesting call for me. I think he was good though, and I think Leicester fans will be probably quite happy with that transfer. But in my opinion, it's a little bit of a waste of money when they don't have much in the budget. So that's a big call. Then obviously we spoke briefly there. Bobby Decordova-Reid, Premier League proven,
Great deal.
Provides a decent bit of backup, can play through the middle, can play out wide. I don't see any issue with this.
Yeah, he's been a really decent player for Fulham, and exactly that. It's that Premier League experience. He can cut it. We've seen him. He's put up decent numbers, relatively decent numbers in the Premier League. And as you say, he's versatile. He can cover different places. I like it. It's a really, really smart business, all for nothing.
Yeah, very true. It's a weird one because it's like with Fulham, it's not a huge loss, but with Leicester, it's a huge gain. So it's a transfer that works out for both parties. It's very reminiscent of when Jose Perez joined Leicester. Yeah, in that he came in from Newcastle. I believe that was actually a paid deal. I was going to say it's a free, but I think there was some money involved there. But still, he came in. He was never incredible, but he did have 1 or 2 good games. I think he scored in the 8-0 win against Southampton, 9-0 win against Southampton. I think everyone scored in that game. But yeah, there was definitely... I think that has shades of that deal where he's not going to be your, key player, but he will come in, do a job, get a couple goals here and there. I think it's not a bad signing. And then a signing I'm very excited about, Caleb Okoli from Atalanta for £13 million. This is an absolute steal.
Cracking deal. Absolute brilliant bit of business. And to be honest, I'm surprised they pulled it off. He is a very, very good player. Brilliant centre-half. He's looked really good at Atalanta. I mean, it's an Atalanta side who won the Europa League.
Yeah.
And suddenly he's now joining a Leicester side who are going to be fighting out for relegation in the Premier League. But that's the pull of the Premier League. This is a really good bit of business from Leicester. It is a big signing. I feel like it's a needed signing as well. It improves the quality of the back line. Incredibly, very, very smart business.
Yeah, we're going to look at whether he starts in a moment. Firstly, though, the final transfer, Michael Golding, £4 million. This is part of the Dewsbury Hall deal. I don't think this is bad at all. He's going to provide some really nice cover in there, and I think in a few years' time, he's going to be a really strong midfielder.
100%.
So this could look to be really shrewd business from Leicester.
Yeah, I mean, 18 years old, I think.
Slightly older, I think, but he's still very talented. I want to say
exactly.
Maybe 19.
But... But he is very young, very good. It's a free hit really. It's not a big fee, and if he doesn't work out, he doesn't work out. If he does though, it's another brilliant bit of business.
Yeah, definitely. So let's have a look at the squad screen. The first thing I want to look at is that right centre half role, because you've got Valface, you've got Caleb Okoli, and you've got Harry Souttar. Now, for me, Okoli should start, and I'm basing that off of watching Valface score 2 own goals against Liverpool in one match, and the last time he was in the Premier League. Now, I'm sure he's a good player, but I think Okoli, they'll probably start with Face.
Yeah.
I think by the time we're getting to Christmas time, Okoli will likely be starting.
Yeah, I mean, Valface, he's a decent enough centre-half, but for me, in the Premier League, he's not a finished centre-half, and that's a big problem. As you say, there's a lot of, there's errors in there. It's erratic a bit. It reminds me of a kind of a younger Kurt Zouma who would just fly into tackles, stick it past his own goalkeeper, and cost his team the game. Yeah. And Face can't afford to do that for Leicester this season. Obviously, he might have looked decent in the Championship, but that step up again, he might have matured as a centre half, and he might come in and surprise me. But for me, as you say, I wouldn't start him.
Yeah, the left centre half, we've got Yannick Vestergaard, who started most of the campaign, was actually quite an integral part of Leicester's team last season. I've still got some question marks around him, because I don't think he was very good when he was last in the Premier League, but we'll see how he adjusts now in this Leicester setup. We've also got Conor Cody there, who can play either centre half really.
Brilliant.
Very experienced player, and I'm sure he'll provide some reliable cover. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Souttar go out on loan, but it'd be nice to see him get some Premier League minutes. Goalkeeping options, Hermansson, provided he doesn't leave, will likely start for them. There are some links away, but it looks now with Chelsea going for Jorgensen that they will be able to keep hold of Hermansson. They've then got Danny Ward, who was there last season, played a bit part role. Again, I'm hoping he never gets on for Leicester, but if he does, that's going to be interesting.
I wouldn't play him.
No. Never. And then Iverson, who is an okay goalkeeper, spent last season, I think the back half of last season out on loan. I want to say at Stoke. But either way, I could see him moving permanently this summer. And then Stolakaiks, I have no idea how to pronounce his name.
Neither.
He's a Polish goalkeeper who will be a nice third or fourth choice.
Yeah.
Unless you sell him, in which case not a huge loss.
Yeah.
So either way, not too bad. Full-back areas then. Right-back is likely going to see a return for Ricardo Pereira. Obviously, he's been playing at left-back this season and playing all over. He's been inverting. He's been everywhere. That's not going to happen under Steve Cooper. No one's allowed to invert. Everyone just stays in there, stands in their specific roles. But back at right-back, I think he'll do fine there. Hamza Chowdhury, I'm not sure what's going to happen with Chowdhury this season. Obviously, he played right-back under Maresca. We could see that again. We could see him play in middle midfield, in that defensive midfield role. I have no idea what we're going to see with him. The thing that I think is in Leicester's favour is the fact that James Justin, who I expect to start at left back, is also a good enough is a right back. He's right footed, so he can play that side just as well. And he'd be able to be a backup for Ricardo Pereira. And then you've got Justin, you've got Christensen, and you've got Luke Thomas. Now obviously Victor Christensen was out on loan at Bologna last season, for the back half of last season, I think, maybe the full campaign, can't remember. But he's apparently come back and wants to fight for his place in the Leicester side.
Steve
which makes
Cooper
sense.
Like
he's back they're in the Premier League, and suddenly he's desperate to fight for his place. But he was really good under Thiago Motta. He played a bit part role last season. Obviously, he didn't start for Bologna, but when he did play, he was all right. I think he'll come in and he could compete with James Justin for that starting role. If not, that's an easy £15 million, £10 million for Leicester to cash in on. That's money they could really do with.
Yeah,
so
100%.
I don't think that's a bad deal, whatever they do with him. And then obviously Luke Thomas as well as an option. So they've got players. Obviously, I think Luke Thomas again was out on loan last season, but he's someone who could come back in and do a job. I think he was at Sheffield United. I think I saw. Either way, we'll see what happens with him over the next campaign. That midfield 3 then we'll touch on next, because obviously there's an exclamation mark in there, and that is because they have no Dewsbury Hall, no Dennis Pryor, and only Will Alvarez to play that advanced midfielder role. They'll definitely be looking at someone else.
Nothing creative.
Golding could play in attacking midfield, I guess, but I think they'd rather him play in that Winks role. Obviously, we don't actually know how Cooper's going to line up. We expect it to be a 4-3-3 because that's what he's played before, but you never know. Maybe he'll switch it up. But based on that, they've got Ndidi and Soumare, who'll play that more defensive midfield role, sort of similar to how Sangare played at Nottingham Forest. Then you've got Winks and Golding, who I think will play that more ball carrier type role. A little bit of creativity in there, but not an attacking midfielder per se. And then obviously we expect them to look at an attacking midfielder. Now, Will Alves, I hope he gets some minutes this season. I think there's a lot of talent there. But I don't think he's ready to start in the Premier League. I think they definitely need a bit more quality there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there is little, without Digital, there's little creativity in this.
Well, Winks is still there.
Yeah, but in terms of that attacking threat, I mean, Winks can do a bit, yeah. But
from fullback, you've got Justin Pereira, which isn't bad.
Yeah.
Pereira can cross the ball. We've all forgotten that because he was injured for most of the 21-22 campaign, and then 22-23, and then 23-24.
If there's something that Steve Cooper likes, is a ball into the box and someone heading it home.
Yes, so he doesn't have much height in the box, which we're going to get onto.
Where's Chris Wood?
Very true. Maybe we'll look at him. At left wing, there's only Steffi Mavididi, so I think they'll look for more cover there. But Mavididi, phenomenal last season, and I'm sure he'll bring that up to the Premier League. A really good dribbler. He put up some really nice goals and assist numbers, and I think if he can bring similar contributions to this Leicester team, he could be crucial to them staying in the Premier League.
Definitely.
Over on the right-hand side, we've already spoken about Fatawu and Reed, but starting will be Casey McAteer. He had a really strong campaign with Leicester last season, and I'm intrigued to see how he handles the adjustment to the Premier League. And then through the middle, it's Jamie Vardy, Patson Daka and Thomas Cannon. Now, all three of them, and Kelechi Iheanacho, played various minutes last season. I expect it could be Vardy starting, just because it's Cooper. But
maybe.
Daka would be the obvious option.
That's not.
But I think Vardy might start if it's Cooper, just because he's got that Premier League experience. Either way, I do have serious doubts there about Leicester's ability to score, because yes, they're all decent strikers. But Vardy's 37.
He's not quite got that burst of pace that he once had when he was in the Premier League.
He's lost a little bit. Patson Daka's unproven at this level. He looks
but he can
good.
head the ball. That's all you need to do, Steve. If you're up front with Steve Cooper, if you can head the football, you're fine.
Very true, yeah. But he's unproven at this level. And then Thomas Cannon didn't play. He played a bit last season for Leicester in the Championship. I think he put up 2 goals in the Championship in very little starts. I think they were all bench minutes. So not bad. I don't think he's going to come in though and take the Premier League by storm, Haaland levels. So I have got a lot of question marks about where the goals come from in this side, because if Mavididi and McAteer don't handle the adjustment, and if Vardy it turns out 37-year-olds aren't always in their prime in the Premier League, I do doubt where goals come from in this Leicester side. So I think they need to add some. Now, in that midfield role, Leicester have been linked with moves for Rio Hatate and Matt O'Reilly. Now, they both play for Celtic, obviously. The problem is, O'Reilly, they face competition with their signature because he is apparently headed to Atalanta. And now this creates an issue because Celtic are unlikely to sell Hatate if they sell O'Reilly. So I think they are going to be very hard-pressed to get either of those in. So, my midfield option is Wolfsburg's Lovren Mayer. Now, I think this is going to be a very difficult transfer to pull off, and may need them to sell someone like Victor Christensen first to raise a bit of money. But Lovren Mayer, around £30 million, would be a brilliant addition. You look at his numbers on screen now, his FBref profile, he is absolutely phenomenal. His assists last season ranked in the 90th percentile for midfielders in the top 5 leagues. His progressive carries in the 90th percentile as well. His non-pen XG in the 91st percentile. So he's really good at getting into goal-scoring areas, creating opportunities for others, and carrying that ball forward. So as you can see, his defensive contributions are terrible, but that's fine, because he is an attacking player. He will play that attack midfield role very nicely. He can also play on the right wing as well. For me, he's exactly the creativity that Leicester are lacking. Now, I do agree this will be a very difficult transfer to pull off. Whether you could look at a loan move potentially with a big option to buy, that's something I think that may be more plausible. Either way, this is the type of mould of player, which I think is a more important thing. This is the profile of player they're going to be looking to sign. As someone that's a creative midfielder who has goal-scoring tendencies as well, would be really useful, I think.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, he would if he did come in and play a key role in this Leicester side. It's incredible when you get players who can not only create incredible amounts of chances, but can also take loads of chances themselves. And he's the type of player that can get your other forwards firing. Daka, he's a decent forward with a player like Maya behind him. He's gonna, those numbers are gonna exceed expectations again. So he's one of those he raises the performance of everyone else around him. Very, very good player.
Definitely, and I think he's only been at Augsburg for 1 season, so he may be a little bit cautious to uproot and move again. So it complicates this transfer. But what's more important is this is the profile they need to be looking for rather than the specific individual. If they can sign Lovren Mayer, fantastic. That's a fantastic deal. If they can't, this is the type of profile they need to be looking at and players that are similar to him. And then let's have a look at left wing, because I think they definitely need some backup
Yeah.
to Steffi Mavrodidi. And I've looked at Philip Zinkernagel. Now, people may be quite familiar with this guy because he used to play for Watford. In fact, in the last 5 years, he's played for 5 different clubs. He bounced from the Pozzo's ownership at Watford to Mavronakis at Nottingham Forest and Olympiacos. So he's experienced all the worst owners in the world. He was at Club Brugge this season and actually had a really strong campaign. Now, he is already 29 and he hasn't cut it in the Premier League before, in the Championship before. So I think there are some very valid questions around that. However, as a reliable enough backup option to Mavrodidi, at a relatively cheap £5 to £10 million, I think this could be a really nice signing just because it's affordable. He could cut it in the Premier League. It'd be difficult to tell. I really like his profile. 70th percentile for non-pen goals, 75th percentile for non-pen XG, 93rd percentile for assists, and 85th percentile for expected assists. So he adds a lot of creativity into this side. I think it gives you something very different to Mavrodidi. Mavrodidi is a lot more direct, a lot more like his successful take-ons and his progressive carries are a lot higher than Zinkernagel. But Zinkernagel will give you a bit more creativity, someone who you can throw on for the last sort of 20 minutes and he's going to try and deliver that ball into the box as many times as possible. So I think having those options, having a bit of a difference to Mavrodidi, because if you just sign another aggressive winger, another player who wants to take people on, you don't really get much dynamism, you don't get much versatility there. But with Zinkernagel, you'll bring someone in who can play the game very differently to Mavrodidi and impact the side very differently. You'd have someone who is a bit more of a touchline winger who can cross that ball in, whereas Mavrodidi likes to cut inside, likes to take players on, likes to go down the line, cross balls in, of course, but he loves to come inside. So having a bit of a difference there might be really useful for Leicester.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's a nice price for it. This is costly. For Fatawi deal was 15 million, and I know Fatawi might be better than Zinkernagel, but Zinkernagel is the kind of price you want to be spending on backup rotation squad depth players. So it's decent quality. If it doesn't work out, he doesn't work out. But as you say, Cooper would like him. He attacks the byline, gets the ball into your striker, and prioritises getting that ball in and putting that team under pressure. It's really good numbers for another quality player. It would make sense. It would be a good deal. But as you say, it's one of those where it's the profile of player you want to bring in. Bring yourself in a dangerous touchline winger with really good numbers who can come in and play that rotation role.
Yeah, and I think this would be a bit of a gamble but with £5 million, I think it could be worth that gamble.
And Watford's a tough place to play well.
And Nottingham Forest.
And Nottingham Forest.
Some very strange places. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't think I wouldn't take those with too much fear. I think that obviously at Club Brugge, yes, it's the Belgian leagues, and so definitely take his numbers with a bit of a pinch of salt, but it does show some really nice stuff, and I think he could come in and do a job, especially if he's only a backup option. Yeah. I don't think it's a bad signing at all. So, yeah, there's some really positive signs for Leicester this season. I think they've got some nice players in their squad. The thing for me is that the Leicester side that went down should never have gone down.
No.
And if they still had that team now, I'd back them to stay up.
Yeah.
However, players like Tielemans have moved on, and I don't think the squad is in the same place it was 2 years ago. I do fear for them this season, especially with the 7-point deduction. It might just be too difficult to close, because they've got to get 47 points this season, realistically, to stay up.
Yeah.
Because obviously the 40 points is the magic number, they've got those 7 deduction. That's 3 more wins than they would have to have claimed before. It's very difficult. It's very difficult now to see them staying up, but it's not impossible at all.
I think, out of all promoted sides, I think they've probably got the best chance. I think they've got the highest quality of squad. I think they've got a manager who is very experienced in knowing what it takes to stay in the Premier League. But for even Steve Cooper's knowledge, it could be a job that's too tough. I'm intrigued how they get on. I wish Leicester. I hope they can give it a good go and give a fight to the Premier League. But the step up is very large, and as you say, if anything, I think their squad has got weaker since they were last in the top flight. It is a really difficult task. If they pull it off, phenomenal. But I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't.
Yeah, I'm also not enamoured by the signing of Steve Cooper, but I guess we'll see. He's been relegated.
I like it though. They've gone for experience over a flashy manager in terms of because you look at Southampton and Ipswich sticking with Martin and McKenna. They're very good managers. Don't get me wrong, but they've never been in the Premier League before.
That is true. I think Maresca's side would have gone down. That's
100%.
because they would have played too aggressive football with the squad,
Company.
like Phillips and company did. I think it'd be different with. I think Martin will struggle as well because you can't control possession when your players are not good enough to control possession in the Premier League. They're barely good enough to do it in the Championship. I do think Ipswich might be better fared though because they play a lot more dynamic, a lot more transitional football. Which, if you look at how Luton Town got on last season, I think playing that style of football where you are very good at turning the ball over and suddenly springing forwards, especially since I think they have better players attacking areas than Luton did, I think that bodes really well. So I think Ipswich are a lot of people putting them already bottom of the league. Yeah. I think they can be better than that. Leicester, I think they would have done well. I think the points deduction is going to really hamper them.
Because the thing is with Cooper is what he's so good at is Cooper's side, and someone's going to find in the comments, but they rarely get battered. Like they've pulled. We saw Forest not only pull off big results against big sides, but they kept things down to 1-2-0. They kept themselves in games, and then suddenly Morgan gives White put a top corner from 25 yards and then win somehow. But that's what they do. They grind out results. He would keep. The reason they stay in the Premier League is because he kept the points ticking over. Whether it was just 1 or 2 points here and there, he kept the points going. That's what Steve Cooper does. But if the deduction comes in, even without the deduction, it's a very difficult job.
Yeah, and the other thing I would say on that, obviously, Forest he did all right at Forest, but even then they weren't great, and they did rely too much on individual quality, which you can afford to do when you can buy literally £200 million worth of players every summer.
And the fact that the teams below them that season were even worse.
Yeah, very true. So I think it's going to be really difficult for Leicester. I think they're going to have to hope teams like Forest, like Fulham, have really difficult campaigns. Maybe Brentford as well if they don't sign anyone. But I don't know. Leicester are a good side. There's some decent players here. We'll see how they end up.
Hope they give it a good go.
I think they'll give it a good go. I worry that the 7-point deduction though, that might be the difference between them staying up or down. That's a huge deduction. So that's going to be really difficult for them. But either way, it's going to be an interesting season. I hope that is everything. That is everything for today. I hope you have enjoyed. Go and check out the comments below and get involved and tell us your thoughts. And go and check out the rest of our previews if you haven't already. There'll be one on screen now where we speak about Ipswich Town and their chances of survival in this Premier League campaign. But yes, go and check out the others. We've done every club so far. We're going to be doing every club in build-up for the 24-25 season. So thank you guys very, very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.